It made me feel dumb, challenged to get through, sad, to say the least, which is quite annoying. Hey friends, Evelyn here, and as promised before, I made a 15 reasons why you should attend UC Berkeley, and I'm following up today with a 10 reasons why you might not want to go to Cal. And these are things that I feel like, looking back on my experience, having graduated a year ago now, looking back on those past 4 years, things that were surprising to me, reasons why I might want to reconsider going, or you might want to reconsider going, just things that I didn't really like about Cal itself that I didn't really discover until attending the college itself. So I have a list of 10 reasons that I've brainstormed up or written right here. But before I dive into this list, I do want to give a little bit of context. I was a business administration and computer science double major, and I feel like your major, your background plays heavily into the experience you have at Cal. So I just wanted to put that in there because this is all very much from the perspective of a student like that. And once again, these are all just my own thoughts and ideas, so take them with a grain of salt. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into it. All right, I do want to preface that these are in no particular order really. I just kind of started thinking and this is how they came up. Number one is how hard it is to get enrolled into classes themselves, especially popular classes. A little bit of background here in terms of how that works, of how class enrollment works. So the prioritization of who gets to sign up for classes first goes by who's regents, so who's been selected to be in the regents program, and then it goes by class ranking slash I think number of credits you have finished, something like that. Those are correlated, so usually the seniors get to go first and then freshmen go last. And the popular classes are usually the introductory classes, so you can think of that as Computer Science 61A, the Intro Data 8 course, any sort of introductory courses that are typically like 600 to 1,000 something people. Even then, those will fill up and there will be a wait list. And the tricky part about this is there are kind of like two ways you can get into the course after you end up on the wait list. So the first is something that Cal calls the 10% rule. It's the thought that likely 10% of the class will drop out. So as long as you're in a waitlist position number that is less than 10% of the class size, you're good to go because 10% of the class will drop out and you will get moved up to the waitlist into the class itself. Another thing that can happen is that they can expand the size of the class, which means even if you're more than position number 10% plus, you'll be completely fine and they'll open up enough slots for you to get in. What gets tricky here though is these things are really hard to tell, right? You're not going to be guaranteed that 10% of the class will drop. You're not guaranteed how many slots will open up if they do decide to expand the course. So you have a couple options here, which I found pretty annoying. So one of the options is you stay on the wait list, even if you are 10% plus or within the 10%, and you just wait it out. But this means you have to go to lectures, do the homework, potentially do some quizzes and whatnot, and you potentially might not even get into the course itself. And this has happened to me before, which is quite annoying. And if that does happen, you end up losing that class and you might have to pick up another one just to make sure you have enough credits. So you can either pick up another one later, or you can decide to just go into 2 classes knowing that you likely have to drop in one of them, but you're banking on the fact that you'll get into the waitlist, but you want to play it safe. So you end up having to stay caught up in both classes and juggle that, even though you're not sure which one you're gonna end up staying in. And it usually takes like 2 or 3 weeks to decide what classes you'll actually end up in, which I myself just found pretty annoying, having to do lectures and quizzes and things like that when you might not actually end up staying in the course itself. Number 2 is the competitive grading curve. And this is something that I really had to learn how to be okay with going into Cal. And this really surfaced in my first math class there. I remember my raw midterm and final scores were like C's and D's, and not gonna lie, I was a high school student who usually got A's and B's. I was a good student, I studied, I did well on tests. So seeing C's and D's were very alarming to me. It made me feel dumb. It made me feel like all the hard work I was putting in was for nothing. It just made me feel like I wasn't going to be successful at Cal. But then what happens is they actually put a curve on it. So your C's, D's, whatever it is, actually become A's and B's, oddly enough. The curve is so intense that it actually manages to bump up your grade quite a lot. But it is something that you mentally have to get over and be okay with going into Cal. And that was just something that was hard for me to understand. Another thing that I've actually touched upon in my Haas video, so if you haven't checked that out, check that out, is that Haas has a very interesting curve in that I think the maximum average GPA has to be a certain something. what I'm trying to say is you could be in a very easy course where everyone actually gets raw A's, but because of that curve, it makes it so that people with A minuses end up with B's, which is quite sad, to say the least. And of course, at the end of the day, all these grades play into getting into your major itself, which is why it's so important to make sure that you're getting good grades. Number 3 is the large class sizes. And what I mean by this is I don't mind being in a class with a lot of other people around me. I think that's great. I think that's fine. I think I'm still able to listen to the lecture and pay attention. That's fine. I think it's really about having to build up that skill of accountability for yourself, because in a class that's 300, 400, 1,500 people, the lecturer or TAs or whatever aren't going to see if you're messaging someone while listening to lecture. They're not going to see if you're not attending lecture. They're not going to care. And you know, maybe some TAs do care, but at least from my experience, no one was there reaching out if you got D's and F's on your finals or midterms or finals or anything like that. So it's very much, you have to stay on top of your own things and make sure that you're staying on track with how you're doing in that class and making sure to reach out for help and whatnot. Because while they have discussions that are set up for people who, you know, they'll have discussions that are called like discussions for people who feel like they're falling behind, office hours for people who didn't do so well on tests. There's no one reaching out to you specifically if you're the one who's getting D's and F's and not reaching out or putting any additional effort. There's no sort of safety net there if you're not doing well. Number 4, and this is actually very similar to the point I was talking about before of these large class sizes, overall campus as a whole is just huge. And this might be more for College of Letters and Science since there are so many majors under it, but what I found is that counseling throughout college was incredibly hard to find. Not only was it hard to get an appointment, especially during peak seasons of signing up for classes, I think the appointments would be booked like 2 to 3 weeks out. So if you all of a sudden did change a course or get some advice on changing that course, it was so hard to get an actual counselor. And another thing is, I think my counselor maybe only reached out to me like 2 or 3 times throughout my college career to make sure that everything was going okay and that I was getting my diploma and whatnot. Other than that, it was always me reaching out, which is fine. I'm just not used to that coming out of middle school and high school where, you know, you have these regular appointments with your counselor where they're always readily available to talk to you about your degree requirements and whatnot. And I came in undeclared, so I was very uncertain as to what I was going to do. And I felt like I could have definitely used a bit more help with a counselor there. So it's just, you don't have that hand holding through college, which is fine. I think it's a great skill that you need to build, but you do need to acknowledge that you'll need to build up that skill. Otherwise, it'll be very easy for you to feel lost in your college career. Number 5, and this one was pretty shocking, is how competitive the specifically business and computer science clubs are. And I say business and computer science clubs because I haven't really, you know, there might be other competitive clubs, but I haven't found this with any sort of volunteering or special interest clubs where they have a whole application process to get into the club itself that's very, very selective. So I think out of hundreds of people that apply, they maybe take like 5 to 10 people. So it is very, very hard to get into the business clubs being like marketing and consulting, the computer science clubs being the special interest ones about like machine learning, blockchain, whatnot. They all usually have their own application process, which if you're used to high school clubs where essentially everyone gets in, it's very much not like that for these specific clubs at Cal, which can be difficult to navigate. Number 6, and this is something that still followed me to this day, it's the crime within the campus and the city itself. And I know they're working on improvements, but it is something that I do want to make sure I bring up because I have actually personally seen with my own eyes someone working at a cafe on a laptop and they just had their laptop stolen right in front of them as they were working on it. And this person just ran into the cafe, grabbed the laptop, ran out and jumped into a getaway car. And I was near all that happening and it scared me quite a bit. I've also had a lot of what seemed like homeless people yell things at me that weren't so nice on my way to campus or on my way home. So just in general, it didn't feel too safe, even during the daylight. Like I have had these things happen during daylight, so it's not even just at night either. And I learned a lot from it. To be honest, I came from a very quiet, nice suburb, and I'll admit I was very privileged in being able to grow up in that sense. So I never had to worry about leaving my laptop in my car walking alone at night. I never had to worry about those things. But going to college, going to Berkeley specifically, I learned to make sure I always carry pepper spray, I always walk with a group of friends. It's just something to be aware of, is that you'll need to learn how to be safe, if that makes sense. And this is actually on campus as well. So it is a public school, meaning anyone can be on campus. So often there will be what seems like homeless people in the lecture halls, in the campus buildings. I've had many instances where I felt unsafe studying even. So just something to point out. Number 7 is how expensive housing is. And I'm not talking about the dorms. I think the price of the dorms makes somewhat sense because you have a resident assistant, you have the lobby person checking people in and whatnot, you pay for some amenities as well. I'm talking about off-campus housing, and to give you a little sense of what exactly this is, I lived in doubles, all doubles as in I shared a bedroom with someone, all 3 years of college that I wasn't in the dorms itself. And for sophomore and junior year, I lived in tiny rooms with living rooms the size of like walk-in closets essentially, and I paid around $750 to $850. And my final year, I splurged on a 1-bedroom apartment that, once again, the bedroom was the size of, honestly, walk-in closets I've seen before, and I paid $1,050 for that bedroom that I shared with someone. So, oh, also it was carpet. It wasn't that nice of a building, so it's not even I was living in any sort of luxury apartments. You can check out my Berkeley vlog that I have up on my channel if you want to see more on that. But yeah, I paid a lot of money for not so great housing. Number 8 is having to apply to majors later. And of course, you can enter Berkeley declared majors for other colleges, but for the College of Letters and Science and the Haas School of Business, you declare your major later once you fill out the prerequisites. Especially for the business major, this can be a bit difficult to wrap your head around because you might enter the college itself really wanting to be a business major, but applying to the business major actually is its own separate process that feels like you're applying to college again. And if you don't get the business major, like it's not just you fill out the prereqs, you get these specific grades, you get in. There's a whole separate application process that is similar to college where a certain percentage of students get in. So that's something to look out for too, is you're not going to be guaranteed these majors. Number 9 is the competition for campus resources. So I touched upon this a bit previously with the advisors, but this also plays into a study space, meeting rooms and whatnot, especially during peak seasons where like midterms and dead week, what we call the week before finals week. So an example of this is like during dead week, I've actually seen people carry chairs into libraries just to make sure they have space, or people will literally sleep in these libraries to guarantee themselves a space, or maybe they're just really tired. I don't really know, but it was really hard to get space to study during the times where a lot of people are studying. And the last thing, and something that I just felt like I needed to point out because I feel like it's touched upon about every college, we don't have great dining food. I would say our dining food is comparable, if not worse, and I'm sorry to offend CalDining, than a hometown buffet, if you guys know what that is. It just wasn't great, and you're monetarily tied to having to spend money in the dining halls, so you have to eat there essentially, and the food's just not the best. So not the worst reason, like you definitely shouldn't not go to Berkeley because of the dining food. I'm just saying, not the best thing, especially since I've heard of other schools that actually have really nice dining food. We don't have that. That's all. That's my 10 things that you should really think about, think through before deciding on Cal. If you have any other questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. And lastly, the thing I wanted to do, this is actually something new I want to start, is answering a question at the end of all my videos. So please comment down below so it can be the next question I answer at the end of my video. So this one came in from Sarah Campos. She said, "Hi Evelyn, thank you for the video. I was wondering what the overall feel of the campus is like. Do students have school spirit? Also, what was one of the biggest challenges you faced during your time at UC Berkeley?" Thanks. Yes, I do think the students have school spirit. Do I think they have as much school spirit as, say, Arizona State or USC? Probably not. I think it also might just be the groups of people I was hanging around. I was more around the like CS folks who likely aren't the ones to go to all these football games and whatnot, or maybe they are, I don't know, don't come for me. But I just feel like, at least from what I saw, the school spirit wasn't that big. The school is huge though, and there was something called the, I think it's like UC Rally Committee or something. So there's a whole club around school spirit. So I think you'll definitely find people to be school spirited with if that's what you're looking for. One of the biggest challenges you face during your time at Cal, I would say there are 2. So it's the grading curve and being okay with getting C's and D's and F's and yeah, just not doing well. And the other would be the whole crime and safety. I just never felt a sense of safety at Cal, even within my own apartment, even within the dorms. I never truly felt safe. So that was definitely something that was a challenge to get through. All right, that's all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.